Lesson 13.1, Converting Standard Units of Length. Now this lesson, chapter 13, gets a little bit different from the previous lessons. Now we're looking at not just length times width times height, but having an actual distance and measuring things. And so for 13.1, we're looking at the standard units of length, which would be things like these: feet, yards, inches, miles. And you can find a conversion chart on page 332, and you might want to remember that because these things are going to be used throughout the whole chapter and the subsequent chapters after this. One suggestion I would have is make flashcards that on one side have 1 foot and on the other side 12 inches and 1 yard and 3 feet on the other side, just so you get used to practicing these. The hardest one for a lot of kids to remember is miles. But if you can just remember one of those 3 conversions, that 1 mile equals 1,760 yards, or 1 mile equals 5,280 feet, or 1 mile equals 63,600 inches. If you can just remember one of those, you can use the other conversions that you all know to help you figure out the rest of them. For example, if you knew 1 mile equals 5,280 feet, and 1 yard equals 3 feet, if you want to know how many yards were in a mile, you could just take the 5,280 and divide by 3, and that gives you 1,760. So if what I just said seemed confusing to you, it's really going to make this portion of the lesson very important to be paying attention to. Here's another thing that I starred because it's going to be quite important to know the progression of how standard units change. So we start out with the smallest unit is going to be inches, which you'll see abbreviated as IN. And inches are less than feet, so feet are bigger than inches. Feet are going to be abbreviated as FT, and feet are going to be smaller than or less than yards, which are abbreviated YD, which are less than miles, which are going to be abbreviated as MI. And it's really important that you know miles are MI, because when we get into 13.2 and 13.3 and we start seeing meters as a part of the metric system, meters are abbreviated as M, and there's a big difference between meters and miles, and you'll find that out as we go along. So let's check out how we can do this. There's 2 main things. First of all, changing large units into smaller units. So if we have feet and we're converting them into inches, or if we have miles and we're converting them to feet, we go back to this blue chart and we see, well, feet are bigger than inches, so we're changing large to smaller, so then we're going to multiply. An example of that was if we have 2 feet, we're going to multiply 2 feet by 12 to get 24 inches, because in 1 foot, we said that there are 12 inches, so in 2 feet, we would take that 12 inches and multiply it by 2. Let's look at how to change from smaller units to larger units. So this time we're talking about like feet to miles or inches to yards. In this case, we're going to divide. So the example, if I have 36 inches and I want to find out how many feet that is, I'm going from smaller to larger. So I'm going to divide 36 divided by 12, because there are 12 inches in 1 foot, and 36 divided by 12 equals 3. So therefore 36 inches equals 3 feet. These 2 things that I have up here, changing large units to smaller and changing smaller units to large, are going to be pretty much what you're doing in this whole lesson. So if you don't understand these, I would look at the next example that I'm going to do and the guided practice, and maybe make sure you're looking at the practice page for extra information. So let's look at this picture. How many feet are in 10 yards? One way you could do it is by drawing a line like this and saying that that line represents 10 yards. And inside of that, I'm going to have 10 little boxes, and each box is representing 1 yard. So 1 yard, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 yards. And inside each box I wrote 3 feet, because there are 3 feet in 1 yard. So if there are 3 feet in every one of these boxes, I have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, and 30. Or I can simply do what I did right here when I'm going from large units to smaller, just like from yards to feet. I can multiply. So I could do 10 yards times 3 feet in 1 yard. 10 times 3 equals 30. So in 10 yards, I have 30 feet. This is the way that you're going to see a lot of these questions in this lesson. Is it'll give you a distance, and it will equal blank and another unit. So if I have 10 feet equals how many yards? I'm going from smaller to bigger, so I know I have to divide, because I said I'm going from smaller to larger. So from feet into yards, I'm going to divide. So I could draw a picture of 10 feet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I know that there are 3 feet in 1 yard. So in 1 yard is going to take up these 3 feet. The second yard will take up these 3. The third will take up these 3. And then there's this one extra one. Or I could have done 10 divided by 3 gives me 3 with a remainder of 1. When you get 3 remainder 1, your answer would be 3 yards, just like the picture shows, 1, 2, 3, and 1 foot. We had this 1 foot left over. So I have 3 yards and 1 foot is equal to 10 feet. Let's take a look at the guided practice. So if I have 9 feet equals how many yards? I'm going from feet to yards, so I'm going from small to big. So I'm going to divide. 9 divided by 3 gives me an answer of 3. So in this box, I would write 3. And right here, this is what your work should look like. I should see what the question is, and I should also see how you figured out your answer to put it there. Number 2, 288 inches equals how many yards? Again, I'm going from small to big, so I'm going to divide. But watch what I'm doing. I'm going to divide 288 divided by 36. And the reason it's 36 is I'm going from inches to yards. And if you go back to here, 1 yard equals 36 inches. So that's why I'm going to divide 288 by 36. And as you can see here, I get an answer of 8. So in my box up here, ooh, that's not the prettiest 8, but you know what I mean. So let's look at the next one. 5 feet equals blank inches. Now it's a little different. Now I'm going from big to small. So instead of dividing, I'm going to multiply. 5 times 12, because there are 12 inches in 1 foot. And that equals 60. So in my box here, I'm going to write 60. Number 4, 8 feet 7 inches equals how many inches? Now I have feet to inches, so therefore I know I'm going to multiply. I do the number of feet times 12, and that gives me 96. But I also had these 7 inches, so then I'm going to have to add 7 more, and I get an answer of 103. So I go back up to my box here, write down 103 inches, and I move on to number 5. 219 inches equals how many feet in inches? Now in this case, I'm going from inches to feet, so I need to, again, going from small to big, right, I need to divide. So I do 219 divided by 12, and I get an answer of 18 remainder 3. So therefore my answer is going to be 18 feet and 3 inches. Now, like I said, this was going to be a tough lesson because it's a lot of memorization. And so really, this part right here, I can't stress enough, from page 332, this is what you should be making flashcards for and practicing this portion of it. If you have any questions, remember to ask. Enjoy chapter 13, and I'll see you tomorrow.